The little girl stood outside the tall glass building, her tiny hands shaking as she held a small cardboard sign that read, "Buy my bike. Mommy needs money for food." Her big brown eyes were filled with tears, but she tried hard not to cry. People walked by, some glancing for a second, others stopping in shock. Her small pink bicycle stood beside her, the same one her mother had saved for months to buy on her birthday. Now she was ready to give it away just so her mother wouldn't sleep hungry again. The afternoon sun burned her face, but she didn't move. Her soft voice kept repeating those heartbreaking words. And soon, a crowd gathered around her. Nobody could believe that such a little girl could carry such big pain. Every word she spoke carried love, fear, and hope, as if she was fighting the whole world just to help her mother survive. Emma was a single mother who worked tirelessly in a large company, balancing files by day and her daughter's dreams by night. Every morning she left home before sunrise, whispering a soft promise to her little girl, Lily, that one day their life would be better. She never complained, even when her hands ached or her eyes burned from exhaustion. Her world revolved around that small apartment where laughter and struggle lived together. Lily always waited by the window every evening, smiling the moment her mother appeared, no matter how late. But behind that smile, Emma carried a mountain of worries: rent, bills, and an empty fridge that often mocked her silence. Still, she believed in hard work and kindness, never expecting help from anyone. Yet fate had other plans. One ordinary afternoon, her boss, the CEO, called her in, and with a cold tone, ended her job without a single reason, shattering her fragile world in seconds. Emma walked out of the office that day with trembling hands and a numb heart, her mind spinning with disbelief as she clutched the envelope that ended years of hard work in a single moment. The air outside felt colder than ever, and every step toward home felt heavier, like the ground itself was pulling her down. When she opened the door to their small apartment, Lily ran into her arms, excited to share a drawing she had made of them holding hands, smiling under a big sun. Emma forced a smile, holding back the tears that burned her eyes. She didn't want her daughter to see her broken, but as days passed, the truth became impossible to hide. The little savings she had quickly vanished into bills and rent, and soon, the kitchen shelves stood nearly empty. Nights grew longer, filled with quiet sobs Emma tried to muffle with her pillow. Lily could hear her mother's pain even in silence. The once cheerful laughter in their home faded into whispers and sighs. One evening, Emma served Lily the last slice of bread, pretending she had already eaten. Lily watched her closely, noticing her pale face and tired eyes, and something inside her small heart shattered. She was only 8, but she understood hunger and sadness better than most adults. The next morning, while Emma was out looking for work, Lily sat on her bed staring at her little pink bicycle, the one her mother had bought for her after saving for months. It was her most precious treasure, the symbol of their happiest days. She remembered how her mother had run beside her, cheering as she learned to ride without falling. Now that same bike stood by the wall, gathering dust while her mother struggled to find food. Lily's small fingers brushed over its handle, and tears rolled down her cheeks. In that quiet room, she made a decision that no child should ever have to make. She would sell her bike. She didn't know how or where, but she believed it was the only way to help her mother. When Emma returned home with tired feet and an empty wallet, Lily hugged her tightly, whispering that everything would be okay. That night, while her mother slept, Lily found an old piece of cardboard and a black marker. With careful strokes, she wrote the words her heart was screaming. "Buy my bike. Mommy needs money for food." Her handwriting was shaky, but her intention was pure. Before sunrise, she quietly wheeled her bike out the door, her little arms struggling to balance it on the sidewalk. The city was still waking up, cars rushing by, and Lily stood there under the tall office building where her mother had once worked. Her eyes were filled with determination and love far beyond her age. As people passed, she held up her sign, her soft voice echoing in the cold air. In that fragile moment, an innocent child carried the weight of a world that had failed her. Lily stood in front of the giant glass doors, her tiny hands gripping the cardboard sign that trembled slightly in the morning breeze. She was scared, but her love for her mother was stronger than her fear. The tall building looked like a mountain, cold and distant, but she remembered her mother's smile and held her ground. People began to notice her, their eyes moving from her tear-streaked face to the words written in uneven letters. "Buy my bike, Mommy needs money for food." Some paused, whispering to each other. Others took out their phones and snapped pictures. But no one stepped forward to ask her name or why a child was standing alone outside an office on a weekday morning. Cars slowed down, and a few curious strangers gathered nearby, their expressions a mix of pity and disbelief. Lily's voice was soft but steady as she repeated her words again and again. hoping someone kind enough would hear her. Inside the building, employees started talking, word spreading fast about the little girl outside with the heartbreaking sign. The whispers reached the top floor where the CEO sat in his luxurious office, sipping his coffee and scanning through emails. At first he ignored the commotion, but when his assistant showed him a photo of the girl, something made him freeze. He recognized that face. It was the same little girl from the picture frame that once sat on Emma's desk, smiling with missing front teeth and bright eyes. His heartbeat slowed, guilt pressing heavy on his chest as he rose from his chair. He walked toward the window, and there she was, standing alone, holding her sign with trembling arms. Without saying a word, he left his office and took the elevator down, each floor feeling longer than the last. As he stepped outside, the crowd turned to look at him, and Lily's eyes lifted, confused by the man in the expensive suit walking toward her. He stopped in front of her, unable to speak. The air was thick with silence. For the first time in years, his confident tone vanished, replaced by the quiet weight of shame. "Why are you here, sweetheart?" he finally asked, his voice breaking slightly. Lily looked up, her eyes shining with tears. "I want to sell my bike so Mommy can buy food," she whispered. Those words hit him harder than any accusation ever could. The crowd fell silent, and a few people covered their mouths, holding back tears. The CEO knelt down slowly, realizing the cruelty of what his decision had done, not to an employee, but to a family. His heart sank as he saw the same pink bicycle that Emma once mentioned with pride. In that moment, everything around him faded. The building, the cars, the people. Only the little girl and her pain remained. And standing there before her, the man who once measured life in profits finally saw what real loss looked like. The CEO stood frozen, unable to look away from the little girl whose trembling hands still clutched the cardboard sign. A wave of guilt crashed through him, heavier than anything he had ever felt in his life. The noise of the city around them faded, replaced by the pounding of his own heart. He finally understood who she was, the daughter of the woman he had dismissed without mercy, the same woman who had begged for a little more time, whose tears he had ignored in the name of company policy. Now her pain stood before him, wearing pigtails and worn-out shoes. The crowd around them began to whisper, their voices carrying judgment, disbelief, and pity all at once. Some held up phones recording the scene, while others looked at him with quiet anger. He knelt slowly, his expensive suit brushing against the rough pavement, and spoke softly. "What's your name?" "Lily," she replied, her voice fragile but clear. "Why are you doing this, Lily?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. She looked at him with eyes too wise for her age. "Because Mommy cries every night. We don't have food. If someone buys my bike, she can eat." Her innocence sliced through him like a knife. He felt his throat tighten, unable to find words to defend himself. Memories of Emma filled his mind. Her dedication, her long hours, her kindness to everyone in the office. He had fired her in minutes without a second thought. Yet this child's small act of love made him question everything he believed about success. The cameras kept flashing, and the murmurs grew louder, but he didn't care. He looked at the bicycle, its pink paint chipped, the handle wrapped with a faded ribbon. It wasn't just a toy. It was a symbol of everything her mother had sacrificed. His eyes stung with regret as he realized how heartless his actions had been. For years, he had measured people by productivity and profit, never once stopping to see the faces behind their names. Now, for the first time, he saw what his decisions truly cost. He turned his gaze toward the office building, its shiny glass walls reflecting a man he no longer recognized. The crowd watched as he took out his wallet, his hands shaking slightly. But instead of offering money, he placed it back in his pocket. This wasn't something that could be fixed with cash. This needed something deeper: compassion, apology, and change. He stood and looked around, addressing the people softly but firmly, his voice cracking under the weight of emotion. "I made a mistake," he said. "I forgot that every decision I make affects real families. And today, this little girl reminded me of that truth." The crowd grew quiet, their eyes on him, waiting for what he would do next. For the first time, his power didn't come from authority or wealth. It came from humility and the courage to make things right. The next morning, Emma stood outside the same building where her life had fallen apart, holding Lily's hand, unaware of what awaited her. The CEO stepped forward in front of reporters and employees, his voice trembling with sincerity as he apologized publicly for his mistake. He offered Emma her job back, not as an act of pity, but with a higher position and promise of respect. Tears filled Emma's eyes as Lily smiled proudly beside her, clutching the same pink bike, now replaced with a brand new one gifted by the man who had once taken everything away. The moment became a symbol of hope, as the CEO announced free meal programs for employees' families in need. News of the little girl and her sign spread across the country, touching millions of hearts. And as the sun set that day, Emma hugged Lily tightly, knowing her daughter's love had turned their pain into something far greater: human kindness.